Hello, Radiant One, and a very big and a very warm welcome to Mastery, the show and podcast for brilliant spiritual beings like you having a human experience, ready to ignite the mastery inherent in you, as well as grow and expand from within and wanting to lead with love in work, business, and life. Designed to activate the mastery already within you, here we merge the worlds of seen and unseen, magic and miracles with the mundane and the practical, spirituality with strategy, the energetic with the physical, and business and work with a whole lot of love and soul. I am your host, spiritual business coach, catalyst, facilitator, and radical love rebel, Maria Serafina. And it is my deep honor, my great pleasure, and joy to share this episode with you. I serve leaders wanting to be supported as you navigate leading with heart and soul. I do that through one-on-one spiritual business coaching and my executive leadership training, the Spiritual MBA, all of which you can find out more about on my website, mariaserafina.com. Also, if you're looking for clarity, the number one thing my clients tell me they leave our sessions with, go to mariaserafina.com/DCAA and download my free Divine Clarity and Aligned Action Guide. In less than 60 minutes, this will give you peace of mind, crystal clear clarity, and let you know what your first next step is. Remember to subscribe, like, comment, share, or leave a review to amplify the energy and love being shared in these transmissions so it can reach more and more gorgeous radiant beings just like you. Today I am joined by the radiant Deepa Ramachandran. Deepa is a certified public accountant and financial coach. She owns her own CPA firm which offers tax preparation, accounting, and payroll services. She also owns a financial coaching business which serves primarily female-owned businesses. She started her CPA practice 13 years ago in the Chicago suburbs with 2 clients and a big dream. Today, her practice serves over 700 clients across multiple industries and multiple states. She also works with female-owned businesses who are in high growth mode and who are looking to spend wisely, save smart, and grow their wealth. She helps female entrepreneurs take charge of their finances so they can create and live their dream lives. Full disclaimer, Deepa is a dear friend and someone I often recommend when people are looking for a CPA. Here is today's episode. Deepa, welcome to the show and podcast. Welcome to Mastery. As I just shared with you, I am nervously excited about our sacred conversation because this is the first recording. I don't know if it's going to be the first episode, but it is the first recording I am doing for Mastery. And so to have you as my first guest, I was really excited and happy because, again, being nervous and excited at the same time and then sitting in your wisdom is just going to be awesome, I know. So would you kick us off by just briefly introducing yourself, who you are, what you do, whatever else comes to mind or to heart?
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm super excited about your podcast as well. Just to say a few words about me, it's funny, I always have to think about this, but to start with my profession, I am a certified public accountant. So I have a license to practice accounting and taxes in the US. And so I run my own CPA firm. I started off at other firms, gained the experience, and then realized I could do this on my own, in my mind, more effectively, serving the clients in the way that I felt would be of their highest good. So it was very simple for me to make that decision to go off on my own. It's now my 14th year in business. It gets more exciting every day. And I work with a lot of business owners, a lot of individuals, and enjoy that work very much. I don't necessarily enjoy sitting behind the computer and punching in numbers, but I do enjoy the effect and the peace of mind that gives my clients. So that's what fuels me and keeps me going. And outside of that, I am married for 28 years, 2 daughters, both autistic, very bold, strong, individual, opinionated young women, and I'm proud to be their mother. They have faced innumerable odds and come out on the other end just shining bright. So I'm very, very proud of them. And yeah, that's my identity, right?
Thank you. And so, these types of conversation for mastery, my intention with them is to inspire, empower, and uplift others. We talked about, before coming on, started recording, we talked about quote unquote being a muggle. And for those of you who know or have, the reference of Harry Potter, that that's the non-magical people. But the way that I invited you in was sort of like, what I want to do with these conversations is to have you share your journey with spirituality and business and work, and potentially quote unquote coming out, if you were ever quote unquote in the closet or not, and that way, like I said, to inspire others who are either on their journey or have been on their journey for a long time, and not to give a cookie cutter model for this is the way it's supposed to be. So to anyone listening or watching, take what serves you, leave the rest, and then just enjoy. My the first question that's come up as I was tuning in has been has to do with your, even going way back to your childhood. I'm wondering if you were, because I have friends who were an open child, who were talking to spirits and seeing things and all that. Not that I don't think that I was ever like that, but I'm wondering how were you as a child in terms of spirituality or that sort of stuff. So I know we're way back, but sorry, that wasn't to talk about your age, but like we're going back to the beginning in terms of this lifetime, at least.
Hey, I'm very proud of my age, so I will never consider that a negative. But yes, going back to the earlier days, I was not one of those children who was talking to spirits, or I had a lot of imaginary friends. But when I think back, I think they were a product of my imagination. I don't think that I was part of that esoteric world that I struggle to understand that part a little bit. Like, I'm not a medium or anything like that. However, I do believe that I have a very open heart, and I believe that energy is all around us, and I believe in so much of that. So that spirit, that extra connection to spirit in the form of talking, seeing, I wasn't that type of child, but I knew there was more than what was happening in this world. And I am from the Hindu traditions, and we are born and raised with spirituality as a part of our upbringing. Now, on the outset, Hinduism looks like gods, goddesses, deities. It looks like a lot of man-made stuff. But those are just symbols. It's a symbolism of trying to connect a potentially esoteric concept with something that humanity can adopt and accept. So if you choose to believe in the idol as a person, I guess that's up to you, but that's not what the idol is signifying. For example, we have Lakshmi, we have Shakti. Those are forces. They are forces that are present in your life. So when you are willing to take one step beyond what you see and ask more questions, the knowledge will come to you via other people. So I grew up knowing this, hearing this all the time. So I was always aware of a force that was beyond us. We call it the higher power. I always grew up believing in that. And then as I grew up, as get into your 20s and 30s, you start forming your own opinions of the world. And it was at that point that I realized that the word Shakti, or Devi, as we refer to female goddess energy, I realized that I was drawn to that. And in certain ways, we could embody what we thought we were missing. So if what you needed was courage today to go accomplish a certain task, you prayed to Shakti, who had courage. And in this form, she was Durga. So we get up in the morning, pray to Goddess Durga to embody that extra courage that we need, and we set out. And we actually feel better. And I do believe that there is some transference of that energy into us, so that we can embrace that and go forward and do what we need to do. So is the concept that I always had. And so when I started my own firm, I needed a ton of Goddess Durga energy because it's not a simple thing. Um, and then later you have to bring on the other forces. You have to bring on the force of abundance. You have to bring on the force of wisdom and knowledge, Goddess Lakshmi, Goddess Saraswati. So I just feel like these are concepts that we assign a name to, so it's more realizable to our human minds, but their energies around us, and we adopt them. And so that's the concept I grew up with.
And you mentioned prayer. You mentioned praying to them, and you mentioned in the morning. So is that something that you were brought up with? Is that something that you adopted or brought into your life? Is it something that has evolved over time?
It has. So again, going back to my tradition, I always watch my grandmothers light lamps every morning to their the goddess or god that they wished to pray to. Everyone had their own individual preferences, so that was a choice that you could make. And that's why I guess there was so many different types of energies that you could call on to make yourself feel braver, stronger, happier for that day. So as kids, you get given these little they call them mantras or slokas. You get given these little things that you then memorize and chant every day as a ritual. And I was just reading an article the other day about how the standard, a routine is so important for a child. It just stabilizes them and gives them a feeling of groundedness in their life. Back when I was growing up, they gave us that little mantra too, as something that would stabilize us, and it will become part of our routine. So I grew up saying a lot of these mantras unconsciously. It would just pop into your head in the morning, no matter how old you were.
Yeah.
And so that is what forms our prayer.
Yes.
So there's mantras for everybody, for Lord Shiva, for Vishnu, for Goddess Durga, Saraswati. So in order to invoke that energy, you just say those 2 lines.
Yes.
That's how you're calling out to that energy and saying, I'm requiring your blessings today. Thank you. And then as you get older, you realize there's more to it. There's the sound vibrations of those particular consonants all put together, which activate some of your chakras and does give you that mini cleansing, or it clarifies your mind. And you start reading more about those things and you go, oh, that's what grandma was trying to give me, but she just made it a part of my routine. So I didn't even realize I was doing this. And then the more as you get older, now I just turned 50 this year, and I just feel like I'm an elder. Suddenly I feel like the way I put myself out into the world has to be more wise and more graceful. And I don't know that's happening, but I feel like that's a metamorphosis that we women go through.
Yes.
And so I feel like it's my responsibility to find out more about that. And if a 20-year-old is asking me a question, I feel the responsibility to give them an answer that'll help them further their knowledge and find their own answers. Because I found my own answers through a lot of curiosity. So prayer, where I come from, has a lot of power associated with it. And repeating the same prayer, sending out those sound vibrations consistently creates this almost blissful energy around you that then helps those who come into your environment. And there's so much, I could talk forever on this, so I'm going to stop.
I have so many questions because first of all, I noticed the very distinct difference between, and I don't know a whole bunch about different religions. I know, of course, but there seems to be a very clear distinction between you having the ability to tap into that which you find, whether intuitively or consciously, that you are requiring, rather than the monotheistic religions where there is one God and having it all. And so having, there's I don't know, do you see how that how there's it's like a menu or choice, but there's also a free will, if you want to, like, if you like, in terms of picking that. Does that make sense?
It does, because I was just explaining this to my 25-year-old nephew and niece the other day, because they were asking more about why this, why that. And
Yeah.
I was just thinking to myself, we have two concepts, that we have thousands of concepts, but these two ring really close to me. We have something called Devam just means supreme, or the word for God. So higher power, whatever it is you want to call it. That's the word Devam in Sanskrit. And so we have two concepts. We have Kula Devam and Ishta Devam. And Kula Devam just means the ancestral deity or energy that your family was worshiping down the line. So it could have started 10, 12 generations back, but that was where your ancestors set up their home, like the ancestral home. And that was the energy that was close by to their home. And so that's who they've chosen as the family energy. Then the Ishta Devam Ishta means love. Or liking. So Ishtadevam is just the energy that you resonate with personally. So if our Kuladevam is like Vishnu, Mahavishnu, or somebody, my Ishtadevam is Devi, specifically Goddess Durga energy. The courage energy is the one that I resonate with a lot. So you have two energies, one that's handed to you by your elders for a very specific reason. And our temples are, they do the whole pendulum thing. And then they found the place with the highest vortex of energy. And then they established, consecrated a stone there to pull that energy up and disperse it in the local area. That's the concept of a Hindu temple. So there was this meaning behind it's all magnetic vibrations. It's all energies, right? So that's your ancestral. And then the one that you want to worship, you pick based on what you love about the different types of energies. So I want to tie this back into what you started with, which is I'm a CPA. I do taxes for a living. I prepare taxes for a living. I talk about money to my clients.
Yes.
So to me, the factor of this existing, I'm talking about mantras, I'm talking about energies, I'm talking about vibrations. To me, the two coexist on the same plane. Preparing taxes to me is my way of putting what God has given me as an ability to serve others. So it was easy for me to pick up numbers. My whole family is accountants. So it was easy for me to pick that up. It was easy for me to absorb that knowledge as I was growing up. It was like part of my routine. And I feel like I've been given the ability to take what's in front of me as a tax return and help my client, one, get peace of mind, two, feel that they're actually doing something in the world that is dear to them. And I'm helping them stay organized, stay compliant with government regulations, which are all very overwhelming. And so I feel like the Goddess Durga is working through me, giving me that ability to then push that out to others in this format.
Yeah. And how has because you mentioned somewhere around the 20s when you started, and also how has your spirituality or your practices or your rituals evolved or expanded over time in your professional life, both prior in corporate, but also where you're at now with your own business?
That's a great question. Yeah, it's a really great question, because even in my 20s, I didn't have a full sense of identity. So a lot of the things I was doing was just repetition of what my grandma told me or what my mother told me, or what I heard my dad say. It was just repetition because it was so habitual, right? Like I wasn't really paying attention to what I was doing, how I was doing it. And my mom said, make sure you light a lamp every evening. Fine, I would do it. I would question anything about it. And then when you start getting into your 30s and 40s, you start questioning a lot of things that you grew up with. And for a certain period of time, I stopped, because I'm like, well, this is annoying. Like there's some days I can't light the lamp. Well, like, why am I doing this?
Yes.
And I would, get into open arguments with my parents about it. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go find out. Because, the whole 1 billion people who are doing this they're not doing it out of blind. Well, I want to know, why am I lighting a lamp? And
Mm,
it just so happens in Hinduism, the 5 elements are really important in
mm,
everything. And so you light the lamp because you're calling in the element of fire. You put some food there and you put some water there. And then, you're calling in 5 elements in different ways. And then
mm,
you're offering it up and calling the goddess and saying, please come and adorn my house. So I started realizing the power of knowledge
mm,
that would then educate on what all the ritualism meant.
mm.
So when you have that fresh knowledge, it's like, oh, you go back and do it with renewed vigor because now you know what it really means and you're not blindly following through. So a lot of when I was in corporate was just that blind
Mm,
ritualism, not knowing, not understanding.
mm,
And I feel like I was very disconnected.
mm.
I just didn't have, I was
Ownership?
disconnected from my identity. I was just
Yeah,
disconnected from who I was. I just didn't have
yeah.
um, and my identity hadn't developed. But as I was getting into my 30s and 40s, I started feeling more connected because now I was really tuned into everything around me. I was
Yeah,
tuned into what's going on, what's happening.
yeah.
And that leads to what I call heart opening.
Mm,
And it just means that you now have a sense of connection to everything around you, and you start um, your gifts start coming through. So
mm,
when you're connected, what you're really supposed to do comes through you, and you have these realizations that this is not a piece of paper with numbers on it. This is somebody's life. And this makes a difference. And that's when that shift happened.
yeah,
Because until then, this person was just a number.
yeah,
This was a social security number. These are pieces of paper in front of me. And my job was to get it done correctly and push it out, right? You go from that to this is the embodiment of somebody's life for that year. And
yeah.
it's my responsibility to make sure it's in their best interest. They're not breaking any rules. And my responsibility to the government is that I don't do anything but my best work, because that's all the government is looking for. They're not looking to punish you. They're looking for a specific
Yes.
thing.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna bash the government. I don't believe in that. They're there to perform a certain function.
Yes.
And so how do I, with the abilities that I've been given,
Mm,
do the best for both sides of the equation and do the best job I can to prevent mistakes and things like that? And that's when that sense of connection is what forged that for me.
Is there also, because the word I keep hearing is also ownership, it sounds like your spirituality went from being something that was given to you. I was going to say forced, but I don't mean for, but like was given to you, and you were put into, and I don't mean this in a bad way, like a box, but like you were put into ritual, and then you quote unquote, you sort of broke out of the box and you put the box together in the way you took ownership of your life, of your identity, and through that ownership, I don't, again, correct me if I'm, it might not be the right word with ownership, but through that ownership came the opening of the heart, of the recognition of, oh, this is why I'm here. This is why I'm good at what I do. This is like, does that make sense?
Beautifully put. That's exactly how I would say it. Like
Yeah,
I was given a box
yeah,
by my family, and I guess with the hope that you would make that box into what you will it to be.
yeah,
And in that way, Hinduism is very open. It doesn't it and with the multiple deities and the multiple energies,
yeah,
you're given the power to choose what you want. So it's more of like a way of life than a religion. It's like how
yeah,
you interact with your own life.
yeah,
And so, yes, that is 100% true. I was given a box and then I
yeah.
made the box my own. I put pretty flowers on it and I made it my
And
own.
so and that in that sense, it also sounds like your free will was fully activated. Like it sounds like, I don't know if it was restraining or constricting, but then eventually your free will was was activated, and through that activation your heart then also was and so what happened? How was your, if and this might not have been conscious or at all, how did you know at the time when you said, okay, I'm now going to go out on my own? Did you know that spirituality was a part of that? Did you know that the heart opening was a part of that consciously or not? Or did you just know I can do this better on my own, or I want to do this on my own? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, no, great question. With age comes wisdom. I believe that.
Yes.
And I do not subscribe to the fact that being 20 is all of it. I don't, because 20s were some of my most difficult decades. It was the time I was most disconnected. It was the time when I knew nothing, I had nothing, I achieved nothing. It was just a time of growth and getting to know things around me. So you couldn't pay me $1 million or 10 million to go back to my 20s, but with age comes that wisdom. So everything that I'm telling you now is only because I've looked back and put the pieces together, but I didn't know that that was happening as it was happening. So in my 30s, when I went looking for answers, I didn't know I was looking for answers. What I was doing didn't feel right. It didn't feel enough. It didn't feel like it fit. And so I'm like, okay, I need something I'm looking for something clearly. I couldn't even put the word connection in at that point. I'm bringing that word in now, looking back at what happened in my 30s. So all this is narrating something with 2020 hindsight.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so how does, looking back then, hold on, let me see, there's another question. What would you want to tell? So if you were to give your 20-year-old self guidance or advice, if she had listened, I don't know if my 20-year-old self would have listened. But if you were gonna give them some advice in terms of where they're at, what would you tell them?
20-year-olds are difficult to work with just because it's that weird stage where you're out of college and you're actually independent. You're getting your first paychecks. You think you know everything. You think you know everything. You think you've got everything down pat.
Yeah.
You think you're indestructible. These are good qualities to have because that's the decade of taking risks. You do need to jump around jobs. You do need to put yourself out there. So these are good qualities to have, given that you have so much to build and you don't have foundations in place. You have to dig into the earth and pour concrete and set foundations for your identity, for who you are, for what you're going to become, etc. So I guess those are good things. What I would say to a 20-year-old is always keep an open mind. Because what I see a lot of them doing is just brushing aside something that their older counterparts have to say. And I regret doing that. I wish I had listened a lot more. I wish I had at least been open to thought. Maybe I would have stumbled across answers sooner. So yeah, 30s is when your real revolution comes, because at that point you sort of have an identity worked out. And now you're like, is this it? Is this it? Or is there more that I'm missing? Because this can't be it. I didn't come this far for this to be it. And so that's when you go start looking for what makes your heart sing, basically. Again, you don't know that, but that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. You're looking for more, and more to me is just then you looking to step up your consciousness of everything till then. So yeah, 20s are a tough phase. So I whenever a 20-year-old asks me a question, I put extra thought into it because it has to match where they're at. But at the same time, it has to give them an idea of, this isn't it. You're not it. There's so much ahead of you. So keep an open mind. And that's basically all I say to them.
Yeah, that sounds, I have nephews. So yeah, it sounds very much aligned with what I share with my nephews as well, is at least trying to keep an open mind and letting them know that what they're going through right now is not the end of the world, even though it might seem like it, and hold space for that as well. So, and so in terms of branching out on your own, was, so, were you, or even like, because what is the question I'm trying to ask? Are you like, because I mean, I know that I know how spiritually and heart-based you are. And I'm wondering, when you branched out on your own, how was spirituality a part of that? Like, how were your rituals or practices a part of that, or did it flourish through that? How much in your skin did you feel right and true at that moment, and how much have you felt growing over the years? Am I making sense in terms of questions?
Yes. And I'm just looking off to the side because I'm trying to recall. You know how difficult it is to recall some things in the past when you're completely done with it? Like, yeah.
Yes.
So that was when I was making the break from typical corporate into my own thing. And the emotion that sent me running to find my own thing was I had it. I was just done with the way things were being done.
Yes.
I still took the heart-based way out. So I'm going to just describe it to you. The firm that I was working at, I had negotiated with the owner to buy it, but in the last minute he changed his mind. The whole deal fell through. I was crushed. And I'm like, I'm ready to go do my own thing because I don't ever need to feel this crushed again. And you know, I was in my mid-30s, and as a 30-year-old, you know, people think they can take advantage of you. And that's kind of what happened. And my heart was crushed. Like, I had set my mind on this. I knew this is where I wanted to go. So we sold to another firm, and the new firm interviewed all of us. And I had zero interest because I'm like, okay, if I'm not going to buy this, someone bigger is going to probably do just something worse to me. So I'm just going to go off on him. So I decided I talked with my husband extensively, and my husband is the kind who feels if it's not the truth, don't say it. If you're going to talk, only your truth should come out of your mouth. And if it's not, then don't even go to the meeting. Like, he's that kind. He's on the end of the spectrum, and a great guiding light for me. Because you're muddled at this point. You're like conflicted, you're angry, you're bitter, you're all these negative emotions. So it came to the point where I did go into the interview with the new firm, and I told them straight up, I'm not interested in working for you. And I gave them a sense of this is what happened. And so my goal is to go off on my own. So they continued to talk to me because they did want me to come over. So I reached an agreement with them. I said, I will see you through one tax season because my clients are important, and it's my job to integrate them with your firm. I consider it my job to integrate my clients, who should have become my clients, with your firm. I'm going to do that, and I give you 1 year. And after the 1 year, I'm done. I'm going to go start my own thing. You can hire me knowing this. I'm not your employee. I only want a contractor status. And these are my terms. Take it or leave it. They took it, and they paid me really well. They increased my base rate and everything. And they said, we want you to do that. At the end of that, I went up to them. I said, next month is my last month. I think I've done my job. I have signed your non-disclosure. I promise to go away quietly. I will not talk to anybody. I will not take anybody with me. I will go away quietly, but I'm going to set up my own thing. They gave me their blessing. They believed me, and they gave me their blessing. And I quietly left. And what happened after that was people started asking for me, knowing I left. And so they would take roundabout routes. Some of them Googled me because you could find me on there. I set up a basic website, nothing major. They found me there, called me. Some people called my colleagues who had transferred to the new firm and said, where's Deepa? Give us her phone number. Yeah. She would. And I bumped into some people on the street. Yeah. They're like, where are you? I need to work with. So a ton of people came looking for me. But here's the difference. For every single person who came to me, I called the owner of the firm and I said, so-and-so wants to come with me. I'm offering to pay you for this client. He's like, are you kidding me? No, if they don't want to work with us, please take them. And they would send their files to me. And so every single client was on board. I wanted zero negative karma from this. I wanted zero negative karma. Somebody else legitimately bought this business without knowing the history behind it. I wasn't going to go jump in there and, mess that up for them. So everything was on board. I still have a very strong relationship with that firm. And when they can't take people on, they send them to me. So we have a very good relationship. But to me, this is the difference. If you're going to go out in today's business world and do things that are against all the contracts that you sign, is going to come back and get you. Don't do that. And that's what I call open-heartedness. Go the extra, do the right thing, like to the end.
It's so, okay. So, I'm also an energy person, and this is way more than just quote unquote open-heartedness. This is, as your husband was sharing, and I can feel that like it was truth, like, and in truth, there is like, there's resonance, there is authenticity, there is integrity, there is strength, there is the Durga, there's the courage that you were praying for. There's all of that in that, and like the openness and there's an unequivocalness. There is there's like deep roots. There's solid roots in that, and I agree, it's open heart, and it's also deeply based in love, like and when I say love, because so often love gets a bad rep for being like soft and flowy, which it is, but it is also one of the most powerful forces there is. There's a fierceness, there's a toughness, there is a fire in that, and so just like, wow, I think that is, I'm reiterating because I think it's so inspirational today, where there's 1,000,001 CPAs, right? There's accountant firms and tax advisors across the globe for obvious reasons. And for you to stand in that strength, I think, that to me speaks volumes, not just of you as a person, but also speaks volumes of the reason why you're so successful in it and have been so successfully in it, even though it's not like it's not like CPAs for spiritual people. It doesn't stand on your website that this is for spiritual people only. Like that's like, wow, like what a foundation for you to have built your business upon. Like,
thank you. I really appreciate hearing you say that. And there's one more thing I want to add. There was a level of detachment there, because
yes,
I didn't want them to fail.
No,
it was my interest to move that transaction forward successfully, because ultimately it's the client. It's not about me or the buyer or the seller. Is the client getting served? And this would be the way they got served, is that there's no hassle. I could get prior records. And if they said no, I would go back to the client and say, you know what? They said no, this is not right for me right now. I don't want to violate something I've signed my name on. And so, and it's so funny because in human design, so the beauty of you pointing this out to me, because I didn't think that deeply into it. It was just something I did. In human design, my right, I have the right angle cross of, I cannot say it without laughing. Right angle cross of the vessel of love. Okay, that's my cross. Yes. And I look at that and I go, what on earth? Like, I am one of the most grounded, practical people. Like what on, you're talking, I live in the bottom 3 chakras. I live in the foundational. I live in the creative. I live in the solar plexus. That's what my job calls me to do all the time. And you're talking about vessel of love. It just,
yeah.
I don't know why I laugh, but it just seems funny because
but not just you, because your business has also become that expansion, that expression of that love in the world. Because when we started talking, you mentioned your love for numbers, and then you mentioned how it went from being love of numbers to being love of people as well. It's like they went from being with your connection, or with the expansion of your connection, or I like to call it the unveiling, because even though I recognize that we might feel disconnected, but I don't think that we ever truly are. I think it's a matter of us lifting the veil so that we're able to experience the connection that is always and forever there. And again, I'm not saying you don't feel disconnected, because I have been there. So I get that. However, when you lift the veils hindering your sight or your experience, the connection is always and forever there. So you went from having, quote unquote, felt disconnected to being connected, to then being this vessel of love, to then that transferring into your business. and your business being that expansion is like, oh, I mean, imagine a world. That's the whole reason why I'm doing these sacred conversations, because that is the vision that I have. Imagine the whole world coming from that place. Imagine that all CPAs or tax advisors or graphic designers or CEOs or engineers or whatever is coming from that place of service, of love, of connection. How that will elevate the entire globe. Like, that's just like, whoa. And I know, but it starts with one. So yeah, so absolutely, whoa. Okay, so anything you want to drop in? Because otherwise there's another question that's coming, but go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah, I'm done.
So how does or did you ever have like a sort of a spiritual coming out of the closet moment? Like, have you ever gone from and that can look different ways. It can be being more vocal about it, or talking about it in meeting. It doesn't have to be, because I know that we have social media, so I don't necessarily mean talking about it on social media, but like in conversations, or meetings with clients or new clients, or on your website, or in your communication. Or did you ever have you ever felt in the closet, and have you ever had a coming out of the closet moment, journey, period? That's my first question, and then I have another one.
That's a great question. I don't know that I've ever had that coming out of the closet, like I'm changing my language. I would say internally, if I had to feel anything, it was starting my own business was the portal towards helping me open up more, because now you have flexibility, you have freedom to talk to the clients. You don't have to follow a script or a policy to talk to a client or to do a service for them or not. So that was definitely the moment. And then when I got there, because I could lay my own rules, I would go the extra mile, but I would just feel like that was part of what I wanted to do. It didn't feel complete until I went the extra mile. So like when you're working for another firm under their policy that says that here you're done, you collect the money and you're done. To me, collecting the money was the starting point of it. And then beyond that, it's like, what else can we do to make sure that you feel taken care of? So I don't think I've changed my language. I think it's over a period of time, my energy has changed. And I think my language has stayed what I'm going to call professional. Like I don't, I want to know, do you have a new grandbaby? Your daughter got married. Your kid went to high school. You are making a life change. You're moving state. I want to know all of this because I feel like this information can help them. So that's what I think my open-heartedness started to do, is it started to help me get more connected to my client in more than just, where are your documents? Here's your bill.
Okay.
In being involved in their lives and understanding things.
So the connection was not just internal, it was also external with people.
Yeah. So I think that was the gradual, there was no just one door opening. It was gradually like embracing a different way of interacting with the client, which basically ensures that they never want to leave. Like that was never the original intention though. It's just, I just love hearing about people's things going on in their life. And it becomes very difficult to disengage at that point. So even if I've had enough and I'm like, okay, I need to disengage with you, it's met with, but why? Like, what happened here? Because there's a connection forged there. So, yeah.
And so, and that's really interesting, because that's sort of like, sometimes in quote unquote business or in a professional settings, we're supposed to be professional. We're not supposed to be talking about like things, but we're whole humans. Like that's one of the things like we have to remember, is that even when we're in business, because I remember this when I was a key account manager as well, like you're never just one thing. And I think that's also why I want to do these conversations in terms of spirituality, and you say open-heartedness is embracing the whole human. And I can see also from a financial tax perspective, it's also important because there might be things that they don't know that affect their finances, in a good or quote unquote negative way that you can be aware of when they're telling you these things, like, oh, did you know that such and such is tax deductible, or did you know that you can set aside money for whatever? I can imagine, like, I don't know, I would imagine that that's how you think as well in when you have these conversations. Or
100%. So
yeah,
people are very
connection again. You're
comfortable.
making the connection. You're making whoa. You're making the connection. You're making the connections between tax and life and business. Yeah.
People naturally tell me things that they shouldn't be telling anybody. They just naturally tell me about their marriage and about their kids. And, I don't discourage them, not from it. This has nothing to do with gossip, but sometimes that's all they have to talk to, and they just want to get it off their chest. So I remember very early on, I had a client who, was going through a really tough time. And so he came in one day and I said, I haven't seen you smiling and cheerful in a while. Is everything okay? That's just how I talk. I don't, I don't make it about more than that. And he's like, well, my son, he ended up in jail, and it was very unfortunate because I think he just got trapped, and he's coming out, and I want to hire him, and I don't know what, I don't know where his life is going. I'm like, hire him, because there's this thing called a felon tax credit where they give you more money to give him employment. And he just looked at me and he's like, are you kidding right now? Like, I can't. And so I don't necessarily think that he said that to me, asking me if there was a tax credit. He just said that because he was going through a rough time, and they feel comfortable enough to say those things. But it just so happened we could transmute that energy into something tangible that he could feel good about and go and help his son.
And which could help transform his son's life as well. So
Totally did.
that's where it goes beyond just quote unquote, not just, but that's it transcends. Wow.
Yeah. Well, there's so many things like that. People get divorced.
Yeah.
You usually lose one of the spouses during divorce because it's very
Yeah.
difficult to represent both of them. They both come back and they're both like, we want to work with you. And there's so many things involved in here, but the key being that they both trust me that I won't tell this person's business to that person, which I won't. I'm very, very clear. Like, if they come complaining, fine, I'll listen to your complaints, but I'm not going to let that tarnish my opinion about the other person, because I know in a marriage, what goes on in a marriage is not what goes on in outside. I have individual relationships with both of these people that I'm not going to allow.
Yeah.
They're complaint, and they know this. They understand this. They feel safe enough to have that conversation. So I just want to say these are the things that are not commonplace. And they're not, I don't do that because I want both clients and I want the billing. I always wonder am I ever crossing a line of wanting the billing more than serving the client? No, I think I can very convincingly say to myself, I've never done something that looks heart-based, but just for the money. It was always because I enjoyed working with both people, and I didn't want to have to choose. Like,
and you don't have to. Okay, so we're coming up on time, but there's so many other things I want to ask you. Hold on. So there's something I'm wondering if you have also experienced a deepening of satisfaction and nourishment from within rather than from, because you have, on the external, you have, all of the quote unquote things that you're supposed to have, right? But I'm wondering about the deepening of your relationship with yourself and your level of satisfaction or nourishment, not depending on, I'm not talking about going to get your nails done or, am I making sense? Do you get my question?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Totally making sense. Yes. I find that the way I approach things, though not commonplace, gives me a deep level of satisfaction. Like I feel great after that. So I'm not about to change the way I do things. And this year I've decided to make a few changes at my office as well, where I'm like, you know what, guys, you've been with me for 13 years. Your billing reflects 13 years ago. We either have to move it up or you'll have to find someone else. I'm going to have a few of those tough conversations because, during the pandemic, everything's more expensive. And we have to, even though I've kept people's rates pretty stable over the years, you get to a point where you're like, okay, you know what, we have to change some things. And those conversations are going to be difficult and I'm going to get a lot of pushback. But I'm going to have some of those conversations. Like either, let's change the way we do things for you because we're spending way too much time. I don't have that much time anymore. Or, some more difficult conversations that are going to that are difficult for me because I want to help all of them. So, so I have noticed that the more you give, the more you get to a point where I can't give this much all the time. So I'm getting to that point.
Yeah.
I don't.
Truth, like the word truth is like, again, you're returning to truth. Like it's about returning to truth for you.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed was because my company has expanded to the point where it just cannot be me anymore. I brought on a lot of help, but now this one thing that I've always held on to is I do the taxes. I can't even hold on to that anymore. I'm just not able to. And what happens is the world of money and finance is very masculine in nature. It's very forward momentum. It's very action oriented, very logical, objective. And that's naturally a masculine territory. Not men, but the masculine energy, right? Where the feminine energy doesn't work that way. And so when you embody that, when you're primarily feminine, you embody that masculine for long periods of time, you start burning out faster. And I have to shift a lot of that. Otherwise, after post-tax season, like I was telling you, I crashed for 2 weeks, 4 weeks because my brain is not working because I've gotten so far out of what I'm built for. It takes a lot longer for me to come back. So I'm making all the changes next year. I have a new tax manager hired. So again, it's a she, so I have to watch her carefully to make sure she doesn't burn herself out. But she's a generator. I'm a manifesting generator. I have that nonstop engine to go and go and go. But the nonstop engine is for what lights you up. And this is not lighting me up anymore because it's burning my engine out. So I'm making some very subtle shifts. So in the fact that shift that I'm making is allowing me to deepen my satisfaction. Because if I don't make that shift, I'm going to burn out. And a burnt out me is of use to nobody, not to me, not to anybody around. So that's what's happening. I'm coming to some critical masses where I'm like, okay, if I don't fix this, I'm starting to feel the effects of burnout.
And now you see it before it's happening, right? So there's truth and there's surrender, there's alignment, like there's all of that in it. And it's surrender is the word that keeps coming out, right? Like, because you said I can't hold on to it. Because there's a lesson or a pathway of surrender happening as well in terms of, and also because like setting this up for the future, I suppose, yeah. So I have many questions, but we could go on forever, but there's a final question that has to do with something to do with spirituality and where you're at now and where you're moving towards a goal, like what you see in terms of it.
Yeah. So again, going back to Hinduism, there's karma yoga, which just means that you're fulfilling your purpose through work. So karma means work. Yoga is just your being. So you're fulfilling your sense of purpose through actively in service of others. So karma yoga is where my family has always rooted themselves. We're all accountants, so accountants naturally have to be in service to others. And a lot of teachers on the side of the family. My sister's a teacher; she's a professor at Rutgers. So we're all in the service business. We all fulfill our destinies through karma yoga. So the Bhagavad Gita, our book, naturally guides you towards. So you can go your whole life in karma yoga, and that's fine. You're attaining your purpose. I feel there's more available to me going forward because I have a root in the spirituality thing. I think over a period of time, once I want to slow down from karma yoga, I think I will become a prayer warrior. I that calls me quite a bit, and that's called bhakti yoga. So bhakti just means devotion,
Mm.
and yoga is being. So your being is immersed in devotion. So devotion to the goddess. And my mom is going that, and it's so funny because my mom's not that. She had me when she was young. In back then you got married real young. You had kids when you're really. So my mom's only like 18 years older than me. And I've watched her evolve from mother to business owner to Reiki master to now she's entering Bhakti yoga. And I'm watching her and I'm going, this is so damn cool. Like, it's so cool to watch somebody do it in front of you. She
Yeah.
found a guru and she found somebody to give her more advanced mantras. And she's like really reveling in it. She's become so powerful. And she's like this, she's a true Reiki master. She's like very powerful. And I'm like, that looks real cool. My mom didn't go this karma yoga route. She got married so young. She didn't finish college, but she, did a lot of good, cool things in her life. I did go to college. I got my own business. I'm deeply rooted in karma yoga right now. I feel that's where my place is. But I think it would be cool to go that route to become a prayer warrior to the goddess.
It's so interesting because there's this one of from me, I love A Course in Miracles, and one of my favorite quotes has to do with to teach is to demonstrate. And I make this analogy both like within leadership, it's about how you're leading by example. That's like that's how it could be translated. But one of the other things is in terms of our children is how by we can say things, and I'm not a mother, but again, I have nephews and I know kids, but we can tell our kids to do stuff, but we also know that they model what we do. They pick up that way faster than we want to, right? So by her being that model, being that teacher, by demonstrating this through what she's like, by teaching through her demonstration, you're picking that up. I love how that is passed on through the generation. The energy of that is just like, yay. Okay, one final question is, what, if anything, would you have loved to have had available to you, or would you have loved to have known earlier on? Not just necessarily in your 20s, but I'm thinking when you, I don't know if the word is spiritually matured, but that's the word that's coming up. Like, what would you have loved to have had available to you?
Yeah,
If
great
any,
question.
yeah.
Because I have an answer to that. I would have loved to have just I'm just trying to find the right words for it. Pure 100% support. Like, so let me just give you a context with that.
Mm.
My whole life, I grew up thinking I was incapable. I grew up thinking I had zero confidence. I grew up with zero self-worth, because that's kind of how you grow up, right? Like, there's not enough, I mean, I had great parents. That's not the point. The point was I had so much outside influences in my life. So that self-worth took so long. Like, I can say in my 50, I'm turning 50, it's like, I think I have some self-worth now. I would have loved to have that 20 years ago, because I feel like I could have just put what I'm supposed to do a little bit on steroids and
Yes.
gotten things out to more people and things like that. So just that 100% support, not saying no criticism. That's never the case, but just to know that you have a person to go to and you will feel hugged and supported with that person, and they'll listen to you and they'll guide you in the right way. I got married when I was young too. So, my parents are in India, came over here. So it just in those 20s and 30s. So we both, my husband and I, try to do that. We have lots of nephews and nieces, and my kids too, but my kids get that. And they're autistic, so their life path is very different from from a neurotypical person. But so when my nephews and nieces, I want them all to know, you have 100% support when you come here. When you enter my house, I'm on your side. Like, if someone is telling you something different,
Yeah.
I'm on your side. Now, you have to know that before you ask me a question, because I may not tell you what you want to hear, but you've got to know I'm on your side. That is like key critical. And I think they're beginning to realize that, because they'll come ask us all kinds of odd things. And I'll be like, I'm on your side, but that's not the answer to it. Like, I'm on your side, but this is not the way to go. I don't think this is the way to go. You can choose whichever feels right to you. We're right here, standing right behind you. We don't think that's the way to go. This may be the better way to go, but do what you think is right. Because sometimes you just have to find out. You just have to do and find out.
Yes.
But never to make them feel like if they do something against what you say, that now suddenly you hate them. You're not going to, no. I'm on your side.
Yeah.
Not like rock solid support. I think I would have been a way better person at this point with it.
Yes.
But maybe I became who I am without it.
Yes.
Maybe it's the lack of that who turned me into what I am today. So I don't know if there's any regrets there, but I personally feel that would have made a huge difference.
That makes sense. I mean, that's also one of the things that I try to do with my nephews. Have always known that I love them, and I will also say no. Like but I will still love them, and I will still care for them, and I will still, and like you, I will speak my truth. But I do that not just with my nephews, but I think I do that with my clients or the world, and everything is like, I speak my truth, but I do not expect you to have my truth or know my, like, be my, like, I don't try to force my truth on anyone. I share my truth freely. Take what serves you, leave the rest. And even if you, like you say, take a different path, I'm not gonna hold that against you. Or even if you then have weird back, I'm not gonna be, I told you so, right? I'm not gonna, and if we have that in our world, then again, how different would our world be if we all had that one person or a couple of people like that? Deepa, is there anything that I haven't asked you, anything that you feel that you want to share as a final comment before we close out our sacred conversation?
You've asked me some very beautiful questions, but I just have one comment before we close out, and that we are lucky to be born in this time, and this time where we all have choices. Even if you just go back 30, 40 years ago, and I have a book up there by Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who opened up women's rights, women's lives, even as late as the 70s. I was born in the 70s. And up to 71, women couldn't have checking accounts and credit cards without a man co-signing. So we were not, our previous generation wasn't as lucky as we are. We have everything at our fingertips. We can do whatever we want. There's never been a time as amazing as this to be born in. I don't think that we give enough gratitude for that. So I think it's time to start acknowledging how wonderful a time this is. And I also think that it's also time to redefine some preset roles. Corporate is corporate for a specific reason. We don't have to phrase that. We can do things our own way. We can do things, and I'm living proof of that. I stop my corporate track to go do things the way I want them to be, honoring the person I'm serving. And I think that a lot more of us can say that, do that, stop the disconnection and move into connection. Because at the end of every day, if I make 5 mistakes in a row, I know my clients will forgive all 5, because at the end of the day, they know that I'm in it for them. I won't make 5 mistakes in a row, but even if I did, they know I'm in it for them, and it wasn't on purpose, and they all give grace. So let's just acknowledge that humans are actually good people at the end of the day, and they just want to be taken care of. And we now have the freedom to do that in any way we see fit. So I encourage more people to forge their own paths, because that's where the beauty of life is gonna be. And
I mean, again, I can only say yes, because a lot of those people are clients of mine. I have people from corporate who come in and say, I want to change my career or my path, and I help them shift and create and build, expand, grow that, right? So I can only, and again, I call it satisfaction. Someone else might have another word for it, but the connection, the satisfaction, the level of relief and joy that is from that is often transcends what can be expressed through human words, because it's just both a physical and an energetic experience that just is orgasmic sometimes in nature. So yeah. Deepa, I want to thank you for having allowed us to sit at your fire and to have shared your wisdom with you. I am going to be sharing, all of the links to where people can find you if they want a brilliant, beautiful CPA, and also to follow you in terms of whatever offerings you're going to have next with your Bhakti Yoga, the devotion. I love the sound of that, the way you spoke about the mantras and the sound and the vibrations in the beginning sounded absolutely beautiful as well. And for you to be sharing that medicine or that service to the world makes me excited for the world as well. So thank you so much. And to everyone else, I will share the links. Have a wonderful day. That is what I had for you in today's episode of Mastery with Maria Serafina. I hope it served you well. For all the deeds and details, click the link in the description and help me spread the love of this transmission by sharing it with a friend or on social media, or leave me a comment or review. Have a wonderful day. God bless.